Hello and welcome to Them Frames. In this video, I'm going to be going through everything you need to know about street portrait photography. Okay, so let's start by covering what is a street portrait. Now, there's a ton of information on there, but I do want to quickly clear it up because street portrait photography does differ slightly from traditional portrait photography. This is because in traditional portrait photography, there's a plan. It's been arranged. Everyone knows what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, and where it's going to happen. With street portrait photography, it's kind of candid in the sense that you're walking around the street and you pick out a potential subject and approach them. They have no idea that you're going to approach them. They don't know why you're going to approach them. And then you make their portrait and go on your merry way. So that's street portrait photography. It kind of borrows from the candidness of street photography and obviously the person-centered focus of portrait photography. Now, let's have a look at some of the different types of street portrait photography. First of all, you have your standard upper body kind of headshot, which kind of only really gets from the middle of the torso up to the top of the head and is very standard in that sense. Then you have your full body street portrait, which of course is going to be full toes to heads, and this is really good for someone who is dressed really cool. You really want to get their full attire into the frame and show off their style, really. Then there's the more environmental street portrait where you want to add a little bit more detail. It's not just about the person, it's maybe about what the person does. It could be a street performer or someone who's making coffee in the coffee shop or someone that's got their own outdoor store. It's just that little extra detail that says more about the subject. And then there's couples and group street portraits. Now, these are street portraits that involve more than one person. I personally, when I go to tourist destinations like New York, London, Istanbul, I love making couples street portraits because I think it's a nice gift to give them and it's a memory that they can cherish beyond just having their standard smartphone photographs. So those are the different types of street portraits. Now we're going to look at what is, in my opinion, the most important part of street portrait photography, the approach. The approach is essential because what it is a sales pitch. You know, if you've picked someone out in your mind for whatever reason, maybe it's the way they're dressed, maybe it's their body language, maybe they've got tattoos, facial piercings, whatever reason you have picked someone to make their street portrait, you have to approach them and you have to get them to agree. I've done a full e-guide on this, which I will drop down in the description below if you do struggle with approaching strangers to ask them for their street portrait. But essentially, you need to go in there with lots of confidence. Not aggressive, never be forceful, never push them, never try and bend their arm, but go in there, explain who you are, what you do, and why you want to do it. A compliment goes a long way. Make sure there's an incentive for them. Make sure you offer to send them the photograph. Say, hey, look, no, you're cool. I want to make your portrait. I think I can do a good job. I want to send you the picture. What do you think? Once someone has agreed, there are other things that you need to consider. The first thing is your surroundings, okay? Now, on the street, we don't have the luxury of being able to control the environment. We just can't. You know, there's going to be a lot of people, especially in built-up areas, in mainstream kind of busy shopping areas. There's going to be a lot of people in our frame that ideally we don't want to be there. So we have to think, okay, we've got the subject on board, they're a compelling subject, but the environment does impact the overall quality of the final image. What I would do here, if you are on a built-up street, if there are lots of people around, then see if you can just take the subject out of it. This can be difficult because already you're asking someone to take time out of their day. Ideally, they don't want to be walking around looking for the perfect spot. So you kind of have to be content in the fact there isn't going to be the perfect backdrop or a completely quiet area. But just in the adjacent street or a bit to the left or a bit to the right where it's not as built up, then think about that, and then you've got less distractions in your image, and it gives more power to your subject. You also have to consider your background as well. Now, the background can give even more power to the image in very subtle ways. I'll bring up this image of a street portrait I made recently of a woman who was wearing very vibrant clothing, pinks, orange, greens, and she was really popping. And where I asked her to make her street portrait was kind of, it was at an art museum, and there was this kind of tunnel way where everybody gathers. And a few feet away from that was this kind of dull, grey wall, really, that offered nothing kind of on its own. But I knew the juxtaposition between the subject and the background would really give more life to the image. So think about that. Think about how you can use the background to make your subject pop, to make them really stand out. It's something you really have to consider. Now, it's the old cliche in photography, but lighting is crucial in street portrait photography. Here's an image I took of a subject who I thought was cool. She had piercings. I liked her sunglasses. I thought she was a rock star, okay? The light was terrible. It was a dull grey day. I was in a new town, so I hadn't quite got my gist of where the sunlight was coming from. I couldn't see the sunlight because it was just an array of grey clouds. So I kind of had to work instinctively. And the truth is, I got it wrong, okay? And here's an example of that. And as you can see, the light is not very complimentary. So it kind of spoiled the picture, really. What you want to do, you want to be out on a cloudy day, but a bright cloudy day where the clouds are protecting the sun. So it's not going to be very harsh on your subject. It's not going to be making them squint. And it's not going to be creating lots of really unpleasant contrasting shadows. So you need that kind of flat, evenly spread light. And that's going to make your subject look great, to be honest with you. Of course, that's not always possible. We can't control the weather. What I like to do is kind of late morning and late afternoon is when I'll go out, because I feel that's when the light is at its best, when it's not either a grey, dull day or a clear sky, bright Sunday, because it's just those conditions aren't great for your street portrait photography. So you need to kind of think about lighting, getting the best lighting, soft lighting that really illuminates your subject in the best possible way. Okay, so we've done the photos. It's time to edit them. Now, hey, who wants to be a gatekeeper on how photographers should edit their street portraits? But there are some things that I personally live by, and there are also some things that irritate me as well. So my rule for me, minimal edits, okay? You don't want to overdo it. I see a lot of these YouTubers who do street portraits, and you see them going in, they're complimenting their subject, they're saying how cool they are, maybe how beautiful they are, they may be complimenting their eyes. They take their photo and then they get it in Photoshop and they edit the hell out of it. The eyes are unnaturally vibrant. The skin is unreasonably soft. And what message are we sending here to someone when we're saying, hey, here's a very modified version of you. It makes it look like the compliments were empty and we're not really boosting someone's confidence. So when it comes to editing street portraits, minimal is the rule for me. Adjust some lighting, add some sharpness if you want, play around with the color tones and kind of put your own style on it. But the subject themselves should be as true to life as possible. But hey, that's just my take on it. And if you want to edit differently, please do it. But I think for the best human approach, then minimal edits are the best. Because remember, your edits aren't the star of the show. Your subject is. So that's my take on my guide to street portrait photography. And remember, that's all it is. It's a guide. This is how I've been approaching it for the past 10 years and developing it as well. And if you can take something from this, great. If not, not a problem. You've got your own journey and you'll find your own way of doing street portrait photography, which I am actually curious about. If you could let me know some of your tips for street portrait photography, let me know in the comments below. And if you did find this video useful, then please do hit a like. Also, do subscribe and tap the bell icon so YouTube lets you know when I next post. Until the next one, I'm Dan. This is Them Frames. See ya.